Additionally, a ferry connects two sides of a natural barrier, a way to get vehicles and people across water when a bridge or tunnel just isn't practical. They have terminals at both ends. You drive on, you drive off. It's somewhat quick, efficient, and usually pretty scenic. But when you live in a country where the major natural barriers don't look like this, but rather more like those, the challenge looks a little different. And so does the solution. Now, to be fair, Switzerland does have real car ferries. Proper ships on the Zürichsee, Bodensee, and Vierwaldstättersee. They cross stretches of water just like anywhere else. But really, those make up only about two proper ferry connections. And both strategically and in terms of vehicle volume are far less significant than today's topic. Don't worry, they'll get their own video sometime later. Today, though, we're heading inland and up to the ferries that sail through the Alps. So, here's how we'll stretch the definition a bit. A ferry connects two places across a barrier, water in most cases. In Switzerland, the barrier is solid rock. And the boat, well, we'll just call it a large vehicle. And the result ends up looking something like this. Now, before we talk about our newly defined ferries, let's quickly look at why they exist. We've talked in the past about Switzerland's A-road network in previous videos, motorways and motor roads, and how they tend to be under national jurisdiction. But they're not the only ones that are. For this, we need another category of road, called national roads, usually designated with an N. And these can be much smaller, sometimes connecting even the remote corners at the back of deep valleys. Every valley ends somewhere, and sometimes there's simply no practical way over the mountain. And in a country with both an extensive road and rail network, building two full tunnels through the same mountain would be a little excessive. So, what does a nation of railway enthusiasts do? Well, naturally, they built the rail tunnel, of course, often decades ago. And the road? Meh, it can just take the train too. The official Nationalstraßen, the national roads, include all these key routes. And in one special case, those roads just stop. They jut into the valleys from both the north and the south, but then leave a very clear gap in the network. They simply end right here at a railway terminal, because that's where the ferry begins. This is where you drive onto a flatbed train, park your car, and let the railway handle the next 15-20 kilometers. Now, car shuttles or rail ferries aren't unique to Switzerland. The shuttle under the English Channel works on the exact same principle. You drive onto a train, the train goes through a tunnel, and you drive off at the other end. Other similar examples are the Tauernschleuse in Austria, connecting the Salzburg region with Carinthia through the Alps, or the Silt shuttle in Germany over the Hindenburgdamm. But nowhere else are they as common, densely distributed, and strategically important as they are in Switzerland. Here, they're not just a convenience, they're an essential part of the national road network. While there are about two proper classical ferry routes, there are roughly 4.2 proper rail ferry routes, transporting a lot more cars than the classical ferries do. Starting in the east, connecting Closters in Graubünden with the Lower Engadine, there's the Vereina shuttle. It's the most modern and longest of them all, nearly 19 kilometers through solid rock. Opened in 1999, it's essentially the Lower Engadine's lifeline. In winter, when the Flynnen Pass is closed due to excessive snow, without it, the detour would take more than 2 hours of additional driving time. And moving westwards, our next link comes at the Furka base tunnel, where the detour in winter wouldn't just be 2 hours, but more like four, and that would still include a rail shuttle. It would be more like 5 or 6 if you needed to avoid them altogether. So in winter, when the pass is buried under snow, the rail tunnel becomes really the only viable link between the two valleys. Now, however, before we get to the big ones, it's worth mentioning that Switzerland's love for rail ferries goes back a long way. It even includes a few temporary services that have since disappeared. For a while, there was the Gotthard car shuttle, operating through the old Gotthard rail tunnel before the motorway tunnel opened in 1980. It connected Göttingen and Airolo, providing a vital winter link for traffic that couldn't cross the snowbound Gotthard Pass. Once the motorway tunnel opened, though, its days were numbered, except for a few weeks in 2001, when the tunnel had to be closed due to a fire, and so the shuttle was brought back to bridge the gap. And then there were plenty of smaller shuttles over the Albula, the Oberalp, and even up to Davos. But as winter maintenance improved and passes became more reliably open in winter, those services eventually faded too. But these shuttles show how deeply rooted the idea in Switzerland is. Whenever the terrain says no, the Swiss find a train to say yes. But now let's finally get back to the Valais, where we can also find the big boys of Swiss car shuttle trains, both in terms of gauge and transport volume. Here, connecting the Upper Valais to Italy and to the rest of Switzerland, the Bern-Lechberg Simplon Railway, or BLS, operates 3 different services through 2 different tunnels. From Isele in Italy through the Simplon-based tunnel to Brig, and then the Goliath of Swiss car shuttle trains, the Lechberg shuttle between Koppenstein and the Bernese Kandersteg. This line has been in operation since 1959, and today it carries more than 1 million vehicles every year. It's fast, reliable, and absolutely vital for people traveling between the Upper Welle and the rest of gibberish-speaking Switzerland. During peak demand periods, trains run up to every 10 minutes. An island of monumental rail frequency on a line that otherwise only sees a single passenger train per hour per direction. And of course, the odd freight train. As the long distance passenger traffic has all been moved to the base tunnel 600 meters further down. So, yes, Switzerland does have ferries. The big ones just don't float. Instead of crossing water, they sail through rock, connecting valleys, cantons, and communities that would otherwise only be accessible with 50 detours for months at a time. They're the mountain nation's answer to the sea, a network floating roads on rails, threading through the heart of the Alps.